Putting Jewish identity and Jewish continuity at the center of the agenda requires all Jews to reach out to interfaith couples and families, to embrace them and to incorporate them into the greater Jewish community. This compels us to examine the issue of interfaith marriage as a problem or as an opportunity. Seeing this as an opportunity inspires us to create programming which attracts interfaith couples to us and helps them to see the greater Jewish community as welcoming rather than rejecting. This is the first step in ensuring Jewish continuity and Jewish identity. This DVD illustrates a workshop model for lay and professional leaders. They will acquire the necessary skills and information to conduct this 4-session program. The couples will learn skills with which to explore, understand, and negotiate their future interfaith-related challenges. This model is most applicable for couples who are dating, engaged, or newly married. The underlying philosophy is based on the principles of empathy, respect, and inclusion. This approach encourages Jewish choices. This is the first session of a 4-session workshop, and I'm very delighted that you've all come here to work. So tell me what your expectations are of this 4-session class. What did you think about who initiated the coming to the class? Raise your hands in each couple. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you 4, you others were dragged, but you 4, what did you expect? What did you think would happen?
I guess it just will allow us to, to learn a little bit more about my faith for him, and it's just, I guess, will open up a dialogue for us to talk about these issues, which, not that we have a problem talking about them, but I guess we just never really did. So I thought this may be a nice opportunity.
Great, terrific. And you?
I think we both saw this as the first transitional step toward our having the same faith.
Mm-hmm. So establishing a religion in the home.
Right.
Okay. What I call a lead religion in the home.
A lead religion.
A lead religion. After all these years, I have some language to share with you. That makes the conversation easier and moves the conversation. So a lead religion. Mm-hmm. What about you, Amanda, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I guess along the same lines where, like, Mike does do some rituals with me, but just so he learns more about the religion and open dialogue.
Great. Okay. So each time we'll have a bit of an exercise. So 1, you get to know each other, and 2, it opens up because it's deadly if I would sit here and lecture you for an hour and a half. Anyways, I don't have the energy anyways after the end of a day. So tonight's exercises, before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about what my expectations are and how I've designed these classes.
I know you have the description in the website, but I wouldn't mind if you also tell us a little bit more.
Description of what we're going to do? Mm-hmm. Okay, sure, terrific. So one of my goals, I have goals for this class, and one of them is to learn how to address and negotiate these issues right off the bat. 2, to provide a safe environment here, and for the group discussion to help and maybe clarify some of these complex issues for all of you. And then another is to help you all make informed decisions about how you're going to proceed, given each individual's needs and each individual's desires, and being respectful in the context of the relationship itself. And then I'm also interested in you all learning how to negotiate, talk to, discuss with your families of origin, your parents, your siblings, about decisions you've made and how you would want them to honor them, and how you would want to maybe open up dialogue with your siblings and your parents and your friends and your families. Because one of the things that's unique about interfaith relationships is however you practice religion It's going to be different the way you practice it, the way you practice it, and the way you practice it. You get the benefit, I hope. It's a benefit that my day job, I'm a therapist. I sit all day long with individuals and couples, so I bring that background, and I bring my background as being an identified and practicing Jew. The other is to have an environment where we can explore possibly emotionally charged issues in a place where you can learn how to discuss them, bring your opinions forward, and to see how they can be shaped. So those are some of my goals. And then in terms of content, we'll talk about your relationship, family of origin issues, children, and then the last session I do something about how healthy couples function. So that, anybody have any questions up until that point? So what I want to do tonight in this first session is each of you will have a chance, each of you will talk about how you met, what attracted each of you to each other, what issues came up, and when did religion come up?
Obviously, when we decided that we are getting serious, we started talking about how religion would play a role in our lives and what it would mean. And really, actually, we are both. I'm coming from a very strongly tied Jewish community. I'm from Turkey, but I'm not necessarily religious, and I never really felt like I need to be religious or practicing religion because I was just always within this very tight Jewish community. So it was just so much part of my life.
In which city?
In Istanbul.
In Istanbul.
But so for me, it really is the cultural part that really resonates with me, and I think it's the values that I gained from being Jewish that I really value and that I would like to continue bringing into our lives.
So already you made a decision because your daughter, what's her name? Paloma. Is going to a Jewish nursery school.
Yeah, well, actually what I was getting at is that I think for both of us, Fabio is Catholic, we decided that we can just cohabit together our religions, and that we would celebrate our holidays together. And
So I brought it up and we talked about it, and I decided that the way our relationship was going, and we really decided together that it was worth trying to work it out and work through it. And same kind of thing, my family has fallen in love with Missy, and I get along really well with her family, and so it doesn't really seem like it's going to be a problem. So we've been dating for almost 2 years now, seriously, and living together, and we are really happy, and just wanted to come here to sort of talk about it more and
Great.
get other people's opinion.
So how did you bring the religion up?
Well, I mean, we knew each other's religions, and I just kind of told her that, if we were going to be serious, that was going to be an issue for me, just because I know I've had issues in past relationships, and I was just, pretty open.
I think it was getting serious to the point where we couldn't avoid it anymore.
Right.
We just kind of had to bring stuff up.
Right.
And so,
It was in the elephant in the room.
right.
Laduna came from a very WASP in the best sense of the word, Unitarian household, New England Unitarian, and I came from a very Midwestern Reform Jewish background. And in many ways, she had taken a Yiddish class years ago. She was almost as well versed in a lot of at least cultural Judaism as I. So I think we have the intellectual compatibility and a lot of the values compatibility.
Initially, I have never really dated Jewish women, for better or for worse. I have always been massively conflicted. My grandparents are Holocaust survivors. They both were in Auschwitz. My grandmother, may she rest in peace, very recently passed away. My grandfather's still alive. Not really raised, we didn't practice, obviously, but I was raised as a conservative Jew. I was bar mitzvahed, very much identified culturally and traditionally with Judaism. Very evident that Kim Kimberly has a lot more faith, I think, and belief than I do. That being said, obviously the strength and of the Jewish culture is readily apparent, as you can hear from the discussions around here. And actually, when I went to talk to a therapist about this as well, what was interesting, and she, I think, was raised Jewish but is now agnostic, very interesting woman, but she basically said, well, you know, have you ever thought about what if her family wanted you to convert? And, you know, you never really hear that. It's just not really, and it's true, or another family, you know. More often than not, you hear, you know, about the Jewish aspect of wanting to convert. I personally, like I said, personally, I do not care whether or not she converts. I think we came here, Kimberly absolutely drove this train. She's a lot more, I think, active and open about wanting to learn about Judaism. We've come to kind of the discussion and agreement that we'll probably raise children Jewish. But you know, I think her family has gone out of their way to embrace me, and you know, perhaps not having been exposed to the cultural religion. I mean, they're really going above and beyond the call of duty to make sure that I don't feel offended.
Kimberly, have you met Seth's family?
Yes, several times.
Uh-huh.
Several times.
Mhm.
And I think they're very accepting of me and proud of us in our relationship.
I just knew it would take time.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
They really have.
So Kimberly, you're the one who said, come on, Seth, we're going. So tell me what inspired that decision?
Well, we've been talking about starting our future together.
Uh-huh.
Entail marriage
Is that
and
new words for
family.
getting married? Starting our future
Yes,
together?
yes.
I just wanted to check that.
You know, right now.
And as Seth said, he's culturally very Jewish. His family is as well. And we have decided to raise our children Jewish.
Uh-huh.
But I also want to make sure I don't lose my identity along the way.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that we are able to expose our children to both faiths.
Uh-huh.
I want to be able to incorporate my religion in as well. I have very strong core beliefs, and that was one of the reasons why I chose not to convert.
How were you raised?
Methodist.
Methodist, okay. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
And
I love it that you said, I have core beliefs. You know, I mean, clearly, I hope you all heard. Kimberly said, I have things that really matter to me. They organize my life. You know, it was exquisite the way you said it.
and I think this class is going to help us figure out what's going to work best for us
Mm-hmm.
and our family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. Terrific.
We sometimes forget about really going into the detail and educating our parents
Mhm.
about what is important for us or what we want to achieve out of this. And the first question they ask, we kind of, we try to fight back what we want, and we don't really open the communication. And I think, for example, just to give an example, in the very beginning when we started talking about this ceremony, that it would, how we would do it, Fabio's father thought that there should be a rabbi and a priest, and my parents' first reaction, there should not be a rabbi and a priest, because they thought it would be ridiculous to mix the two religions into
Right.
one ceremony. My father thought we were making fun of our religion if we bring a priest there, and his father's first reaction, we should have a priest there because he's Catholic. So it wasn't an easy battle, and but we understood along the ways that you just have to talk with them and start a dialogue and hear what they would like to, how they would like to see it, and what you would like to have, and just have this educative dialogue, I guess, and eventually you find a common ground, hopefully.
I think that is exquisite the way you said it, because exactly what you're saying is you dealt with your parents the way, both of you dealt with your parents the way you want them to deal with you, in a very adult, open way, and to be able to move them to a place of acceptance, right, without offending them. I'm going to give you all a book list, and how many of you have gone to the web and looked at either Jewish Family Life or Jewish Outreach Institute or interfaithfamilies.com? You have. You have. Yeah. Which ones did you look at, and what did you find helpful?
I've been to interfaithfamily.org. I actually found out that Washington Hebrew has an interfaith rabbi through that website.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever he gives lectures sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
so I found that helpful. And there's, it just tells you about, I guess, like other events that
Thanks.
you can go to.
Uh-huh. Great. what else? What did you find on the website?
I actually went to interfaithfamily.com too and subscribed to their like email listserv, so I get
Listserv,
like the monthly
Stories.
yeah, like
The stories.
people write in and share their stories, and I definitely I love reading them and get a lot of that. Get a lot.
No, that on interfaithfamily.com, they every month, and they have a wonderful website, and then they have a monthly newsletter, and they'll put on stories. Just like we're doing here, they're on stories. And soon, actually, what we're doing here, they're going to put it on video so that you'll be able to see maybe a family making Shabbat, or maybe a couple talking about, well, how are we going to have X as a lead religion? How are we going to do this? And you'll watch for 10 minutes on a video. So I'm a big supporter of that website. Welcome. It's good to see you all. What kind of a week did you all have? Did you all talk? Did anybody talk to each other about interesting things related to interfaith? Nobody had a conversation? Nobody had a conversation.
Just talked a little bit on the way back.
Uh-huh,
But
and?
if we continued.
Uh-huh.
Don't really remember.
Yeah, I think.
No one had a
It's a
conversation.
short, very short one.
Okay. Uh-huh. So, if you can go into your own individual minds and think why, or at one point, did you want to have a conversation? Amanda, did you want to talk to Michael about something, but you backed off? Or Brian, did you want to talk to Missy about something and you said, oh, I'll just let it go? Or what happened in each of you?
No, I mean, I think, we've talked in the past, so it wasn't really anything. I mean, this was a good way to facilitate us continuing those talks. There was nothing really new, for us to discuss after the meeting. We talked about that we liked it and that we, thought it would be good for us.
Mm-hmm. And you put yourself on the spectrum of, oh yeah, we fit in here.
Right.
Yeah?
And
Good.
as time goes on and this session, the next session, the one after that, it'll spark more conversation, I'm sure.
Great. Between the two of you.
Yes.
Good.
I engaged my family about the course and friends. And
This week?
Yeah.
So tell us about it. How did that go?
It was good. I mean, I had told my family before. They thought it was a great idea.
Uh-huh.
Brian's family felt the same way. And our friends, the couple that we had conversations with, all, thought it would be a good way to get ideas out in the open and discuss things.
And how were the responses? What kind, were you pleased with the responses? Were people supportive of you doing this?
It was, and it was not. I had expected that. I wasn't expecting
Mhm.
anything less because
Right.
Brian and I have had, I think, good experiences
Talking about this.
talking about it with our family and friends.
Good.
So.
Good.
Just that we thought the class was going to be very helpful, and it was nice to hear that other couples are struggling through these same
Uh-huh.
type of issues that we are.
Mm-hmm.
And he spoke to his mom that night,
Uh-huh.
and they knew we were going to be going to the class, and my parents knew as well. And
Uh-huh.
both were very supportive, and his parents know that we've decided if we have a family to raise them Jewish. And she's a little concerned because I also want to bring my faith into the picture a little bit.
Uh-huh.
So we'd probably have a Christmas tree.
Mm-hmm.
So she expressed some concern about that. She's afraid the kids are going to be confused. And
Okay. Rain on topic for tonight. Go on. Perfect topic for tonight. Okay.
So, Seth said that's why we're taking this class, and that we would figure out a way to raise our family. It might be different than the way they did, but
Mm-hmm.
we would figure it out.
It also sounds like Seth's mother's pretty open about talking to you.
She is. Which is
Actually,
great.
yes. It might be just on the edge of strident, but hopefully not.
On the edge.
On the edge. All right. We'll work with that too. That's great. We'll allay her fears. Good.
I mean, now reflecting more about my religion, the traditions, etc., as much as I enjoy, for me it's very important to have the celebrating the holidays, etc. But because I didn't quite have that experience properly done, so to speak, if you will, I think now I'm kind of having difficulty in, I'm just like really trying to understand how how we should be doing this at home, because it doesn't come naturally to me that when Hanukkah comes I have to every night light the candles. It's not necessarily that important to me, but I'm trying to figure out how I will give the Jewishness to my daughter, because as I said, for my family they didn't have to do much because all their friends were Jewish anyway, so it was just,
Right.
that's it.
So you and Fabio have an entirely different kind of social network than either of you grew up in right now, because all your friends are not Jewish now here.
That's right.
Right, so that you can't bank on that as a
That's very true.
identity formation. Has there been conversation about having a lead religion, or were you thinking of doing it in a different way?
The lead religion would be Judaism.
Judaism, okay.
Yes.
So how I like to think about it is if the two of you are here and your family, your children are here, there are two big families up here, right? And no matter what, even if this whole family was Jewish, if there was a conversion, there is always one family that's not Jewish. And important words are respect, inclusion, right? Consideration, kindness. So there will always be a celebration. The message, the clarity I hope that after these sessions you will have is some sort of idea about what you're going to be talking to the children about and how the children are going to be raised. They will always know they have Jewish family and non-Jewish family. They will always know that. And it's how you two all struggle to create that in the most positive sense. And how you see it as an addition rather than a deficit. So it's not only about whether you have the Christmas tree in the house or you have the Christmas tree out of the house at the family, or the gifts are wrapped in Christmas paper or not. It's the actual message that you send out to the children that the children take.
What I think we stumble upon is we respect and we both practice and are, somewhat observant of our own religions. And
Right.
at some point, at least I feel that if you're raising a child, you have to choose. To an extent, you have to choose. If you want the child to be baptized, or if you want the child to be bar mitzvahed or bat mitzvahed, you can't have them do both.
Right.
So there needs to be,
Right.
there needs to be a lead, or so at some point, while you can embrace and there's a crossroads, you can't necessarily have, you can't embrace both and just try to satisfy both people's wishes. And I think that that's the extent to which we've gotten. And I think it's troubling for me. That's troubling for me, because I respect, I never went through my own first communion growing up because I did it as an adult. I see my nieces and nephews go through it, and I can see all the cultural, things that go with it, as you've experienced with your family and yourself. And, I hope to attend your niece's bat mitzvah, I guess. And I wouldn't want you to feel with, children that they're missing out on something like that. So I think that's very difficult.
So that's a big piece of this. And I'm so glad you began to talk about it. In every interfaith marriage, no matter how you structure this, there's always loss. And that's part of the deal. There's always loss, because even if you take on new things and new aspects, and each person does surrender some pieces of their past in some ways, or some pieces of their religion or something. Now, if you all were going to, if religion or spirituality didn't matter to any of you, you wouldn't be in this class. There are many people who get marry the same religion, marry interfaithly, they don't go to class, they're not interested. But you all are here, and I'm always so respectful that you're here trying to figure out how you're going to have a religious and a spiritual life. And the one thing that I can say specifically, if you want your child to have one religious identity, if a religious identity is important to you all and then to a child, it's also important that they have that given to them by you. So I have a question for all of you. In this group, each of the Jewish person has basically expressed a desire to have their children be raised with a Jewish identity. But what I want to know is, one, this is a two-part question. One, the person who was raised as a Jew, do you know why you're thinking about it's important to have Jewish children? And two, the second part question is, do your partners know why? The why part is what I'm focusing on. You want to have Jewish children. Judaism as a lead religion. So how was everybody's week? Good week? Bad week? Difficult week? Complicated week?
Good.
No,
No, it's not so bad.
not so bad. So I posed a question to everybody last week as we ended the group. Did anybody remember the question? Yes?
She did, she told it to me.
Good. Who else? Yes? Great. Okay, so why don't we start off with how you talked about the question. And the question was, for the person who is Jewish, why are you, those of you who have asked directly, and Reva, we talked about you and Fabio having a sort of different approach towards this, but you know, is
Lee's on the way.
is Lisa on the way? Okay, great. Okay, great. Why, if you're the Jewish person, why have you asked your partner to consider raising the children Jewish? What does that mean to you? And to the partner who's not Jewish, what did you imagine it meant for your partner to ask or think about to contemplate raising the children Jewish? So, who wants to start?
I'll start.
Good.
I'll try it.
Great.
Well, first, to start out, last week, you had asked a question and it was assumed that we were all going to raise our kids Jewish. And Jill and I had talked about it, but not gotten that far in deciding.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to throw that out there for the conversation. That was part of the reason we were doing this class. You know, but it began like a series of dialogues. Oh, sorry, by the way, she has the flu, so she's not here tonight and has to do work from home as well. But so I'm sans Jill. But we had the conversation, and to me, Judaism is really important. It's important to pass on to my children, and it's important as much as I would say I'm a secular Jew right now, except on my holidays. When I have a family, I want that to be instilled in part of the fabric of their lives, and it just raises questions because she understands that, and then it became, I'm sure, you all have probably talked about it yourselves because you're probably beyond where we are, like how you integrate it, to what extent, some elements of Christianity could be a part of your household, and so, that's where we're at. And she's like, well, and I need to go back to my rabbi and ask him. She was asking, well, can someone be Jewish even though the mom's not Jewish? And I was like, well, it depends on the denomination and how observant you are. So, when we're discussing it, it just became along the lines of, it's important to me. I want my kids to have a Jewish background. Having a bar mitzvah is important, or a bat mitzvah is important for me. And
Okay.
yeah.
Great.
Sorry.
Okay. Did anybody take it further than Brian about why it was important, why Judaism was important?
I guess I did. There you go.
Okay.
No, I did. I mean, for me, my grandparents are Holocaust survivors, so part of it's a big respect thing. Obviously, they wouldn't have survived and persevered if they did not have faith in their religion. The other main point, I guess, for me is just preservation of the religion.
It's important to me because it's very important to my family. I'm very close with my family. And a lot of my memories growing up are of like Jewish holidays, and they're good memories, most of it. So I want that for my family.
We, as a couple, are already bringing so many differences into this, different nationalities, different languages. We live in different country from our origin. And so I think something that belongs to our past, if we can hold on to it, that I think that's very important, and I think that will make us more stronger as well. And I would really believe in that. Yeah.
So bringing the past forward. Right. And Fabio, it seems to me you have a very clear understanding of what we was talking about, because you're the one who sort of said, Reba, I think we should raise our daughter Jewish.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe not in all the aspects, but I knew it was important for her.
Yeah.
I think there's also, a practical matter when you have a child, which is, as Riva mentioned, there's so many other things to complicate the child's life. It's good if we can, at least on the religion, whatever we can kind of simplify. I think that's good. And also maybe on a practical matter, also from a father's standpoint is, what I mentioned against the other time was, you feel there's this very strong network between the Jews. So for me, I feel like for my daughter is almost like a safety net, in a way, that being part of the community, she has some sort of
a place.
Yeah, a group that whatever she is, she way or the other should maybe be able to rely on. So since I at some point I won't be with her all the time.
And a sense of familiarity.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Good.
From a very early age, I was very skeptical about the God thing, but I was determined to be very clear about my identity as a Jew, because I didn't ever want to be in a position, or my children to be in a position, where our identity was not understood and we could be therefore vulnerable to anti-Semites.
So there's a real incorporation issue for you. To have this incorporated, not to be pushed aside. So let's move on to the agenda of today. And the agenda of today is about, you can imagine, identity. And that's really what I wanted us to focus on. All kinds of identities: religious identity, cultural identity, race identity, gender identity, values, knowledge, belief.
Tolerance.
Great. Couldn't read it. Okay, tolerance. So, give us an example. Fabricate an example for us.
Well, I've always felt that one of the greatest ideals that myself and my friends can hold is the value of tolerating those in our largest community.
That's stuck. I mean, from early age, you're taught through Hebrew school and from my parents, and that's definitely a big part of our Jewish identity is giving to others.
I think the interactions that you're referring to are going to be up to me.
Of course, I agree.
I mean, and he will do, if I say, let's make Shabbat dinner, let's go to temple, he'll do it. He'll do it. But I'm gonna have to make the plans and, and I have every intention of doing that.
We've been to high holidays.
Yeah,
We've been to services. We've been to Otis one time. We went to this year the New Age show where they have in the church. What's it called? No, it was up on New York Avenue. They had it in the church. It's just a little bit too out there for me, but it was someone recommended, and it was the magic word, which was free. So we didn't have to fork over cash to attend.
What was the part that was too out there for you?
It wasn't, I guess, say out there. It was, despite the fact that I only go to shul a couple times a year, it was to a conservative temple.
He wants it to be
Reflecting
the way he
honest.
wants to go.
Well, I mean, you know, not that I mean, it's.
Well, I was trying to determine whether it was new agey.
It was
which is
absolutely
not
new
what I would
agey.
want to be doing.
It was absolutely new agey
Oh, okay.
on some level, yes.
'Cause I'm not sure if Jewish crystals really is.
Yeah, that's right. It was
You
just,
should try Georgetown University.
it was just
They
different.
have a great-
yeah, we'll go to a myriad of schools, you know. You'll catch
So,
us in every
Kim,
one time.
You know, it was interesting, Kim, as Seth stayed loftier and loftier in his generalizations, you just sort of cut to the chase and said, listen, you know, if we're gonna have Shabbat dinner and we're gonna do A, B, and C, I'm gonna be the one who's doing it.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
And
I
he'll
know
go
that.
along.
100%.
Uh-huh.
I took a Judaism course and, you know, we
Right.
had a Shabbat dinner and
Yeah.
Seth came and he was an Orthodox. But it was nice and it was a good time for us to learn. And,
Except for the vegan
my
meal.
only concern is
That's all
he'll be
I'm
able to
saying.
bring a lot more to the table, seeing as though
Right.
he's culturally, traditionally very Jewish.
What is it, there's form and there's structure? Or form and content? Right.
So I'm concerned that I'm not gonna be educated enough in Judaism, and I feel like I need to start taking all these classes and, you know, joining the JCC, and that's my main concern. And I don't mind driving the train and making the plans and,
Your partner is sort of giving you the entree into learning more.
Yeah, of course.
we've talked about,
Uh-huh.
we both need to do the Judaism courses. I mean,
Mhm.
really.
Oh, I told her I'd go,
Yeah.
where
Have
it
you-
permits.
Did you all get the flyer for the
We
introduction
looked
to
at it,
Judaism?
yes.
Mhm.
Yeah,
We'll look at it tonight.
great,
We
Yeah.
didn't get them.
okay. Let me check if I have one at the end, if not, there should be right in the front hall. And there also is a Shabbat dinner coming up. So welcome, we'll start now officially. This is our fourth and last session, and it's been wonderful being together. So I'm going to ask a few questions tonight. Did anybody go on any of the Interfaith Family or Outreach Institute websites to look at anything, or go to a bookstore and find a new book that you found interesting, or have a conversation?
I got the newsletter, the interfaithfamily.com newsletter
Uh-huh.
this week. So I read an article about an interfaith couple and how they were in this search for an interfaith ketubah, and they were so expensive, and they found this great website, and
Uh-huh.
they got the ketubah of their dreams, I guess.
Great, terrific. Anybody else?
You know,
Yeah.
what we had was interesting. Riva's parents are in town,
Yes?
so we had this whole discussion about actually doing a Shabbat dinner,
Uh-huh.
which was the first time we'll be doing. So we, delegated to them the organization and the planning of the whole thing.
Uh-huh.
So,
For my parents to show Fabio how they
I can't wait. Do you all realize we're going to meet Reva's parents at the end of class? Because they're over at the play, so they're going to come and join us, I hope. Yeah.
So it was a nice, so, in that process, we were talking a little bit about, the rituals and, how they did have, or they, how they didn't really have so many rituals and why. And her father was, explaining that he was not really, so much into the rituals when, they're bringing Riva and her brother up. So, yeah, it was an interesting conversation.
Uh-huh.
And we also told them that we were more inclined to raise our daughter Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
So we had not shared that piece of news.
That's right.
With them.
Which is very interesting because basically her father said, I thought, it was going to be a bigger deal. Anyway, at least Riva felt it's going to be a bigger deal. And then her father basically, like I said, that's fine, whatever you guys think is...
I'm very interested in something that was very popular 40 years ago. And it fell under the category in my field of premarital counseling. And then it fell out of fashion. And then it came back into fashion, as most things do. So it was a tremendous amount of work has been done on the study of couples and the study of successful marriages. And it's mostly been very academic, but John Gottman, and I like his work a lot, and he is one of the most important couples therapist researcher from a clinical perspective. First of all, before we even go to the issues that John brings up, for me, one of the dilemmas always in couples, and couples trying to build a marriage and a relationship and then a marriage, or sometimes a marriage and then a relationship, is somewhat like the MasterCard ad, where it's two circles and they overlap. And to me, the overlap is about the attachment, the attached part between the two of you. And the attachment in a dynamic, systemic way is about how people feel they have bonded and can trust each other and know that truly that other person has your best interest at heart. And that's what about attachment. Autonomy is all the part around the circle, right? As the circles overlap, it's all the part that's not overlap. And autonomy is about everything you do for yourself. How you take care of yourself emotionally, how you take care of yourself physically, how you have a career, how you understand your career, and how you maintain yourself as an individual. So, if you can picture those two circles, and if you, like in the eclipse, if you put one on top of another, that marriage has no air to breathe. If you have two circles, and they're just side by side, and then there is no we-ness. So the sense of attachment is about the sense of we-ness. And that to me is how the most functional a couple can be, having both conditions operating always at the same time, a sense of attachment and a sense of autonomy. And out of that, in the attachment and in the conundrum of the attachment and the autonomy, for me comes, and I did some research in this area, is where the intimacy is formed, okay? So the intimacy is not particularly in the bedroom. The intimacy is formed in terms of being able to rely on the other person and knowing it's really safe to be with the other person and that that person is there for you at all times, unconditionally. So that's sort of a framework, okay, about how I think about things in couples and how I actually work with couples. In Gottman's work, he calls it the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. So the first one is criticism. Criticism is one of the most malignant forces in a relationship. Okay? Number 2 is contempt. And you know, you're all shaking your heads. And it's very, I find it always, whenever I go over this, just fascinating to me.
I said disdain, but I think that was the word.
Contempt, yeah. Intent to insult one's partner. Contempt, right? Criticism's pretty obvious, but contempt to me is always the one that's interesting. Now, the third one is my favorite. I bet you can guess it, Michael. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Defensiveness. When somebody responds defensively, it's the end of a conversation, okay? It's the end of a conversation. So there's no, basically, emotion underneath, and you can't ever rejoin. It sort of either dead ends or gets insulting, but once you have a defensive posture, that's it. It sort of ends, and then there's a disconnect. Because marriages are always sort of, I downhill ski, so I like this metaphor. If you don't have downhill ski, you may not get it. But when you downhill ski, and if you're skiing well, you're skiing in the fall line. So you're always on or off the fall line. And in a really functional marriage, you're moving into an intimate moment and you're moving out of an intimate moment, okay? So the experience is coming out of one or going in. You disconnect and you connect. It's always in motion. A healthy marriage is always in motion. And it's not stuck in one place or another. And it's not always, we'll fix this problem and life will be happy ever after. It doesn't work like that. It's always in an unsteady state, which is a very positive idea, right? It also is a very renewing idea to think that if you do fall into a disconnect, and we all fall into a situation of disconnect on a regular basis, the point is, how do you get back into a connected place? Okay? So we have criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and the fourth one is stonewalling. Okay? Stonewalling is leaving the room. I'm not talking about this anymore. I am leaving the room. Or I don't want to talk about this issue. Everybody's laughing. This is off the board. I don't want to talk about this. Well, leave it. Okay. So stonewalling, like defensiveness, ends the discussion. Okay? I mean, now I hope that you know defensiveness, you're going to go, click, click. That's what Marion was talking about. This is not going to get us anywhere, right? And if we say, I'm not going to talk about this anymore, you're going to say, that's what she was talking about. We're not doing well. Let's stop. We better start figuring out how we can talk about it. So I think they're very helpful and very important. So how could we talk about strategies to improve the relationship? What would you think are some strategies? Now, these are simple. I'm going to tell you they're very simple. Okay? To improve the relationship.
Communication.
Say it again.
Communication.
Communication. And what does that mean?
Yeah, can you be more?
Can you be specific, please?
Because all of these are communication.
Yeah.
Sure, that's very true.
Right, and not talking is communicating.
Sure.
Making
about
faces is even more
communicating
specific.
about your feelings.
That's it. Okay. Anybody else?
Do something nice for the other person.
Do something nice. Okay. Okay, who else? How would you improve the relationship?
It kind of goes along with what you're saying, but more of just experiencing or sharing each other's interests and likes.
So going out of your way.
Yeah, like if I like art, Brian will go to the art museum with me, and I'll go to concerts because I know that he likes concerts. So it's
Good. Good. I have 3 sentences. One is, think counterintuitively. Okay? Thinking counterintuitively makes you stop and say, is my intuition driven by our best interests? Or is my intuition being driven by my selfishness? Or if I think counterintuitively, can I push this in a different place? Okay? So the second part of that is act empathically. Think counterintuitively, act empathically. About having oneself mirrored by their partner or put in their shoes. The act of being empathic is not sympathy, it's about putting yourself into the other person's experience. Right? So here we are in these pieces of mind, but I didn't tell you the strategies that he uses and he recommends and used it as a clinical technique. The first one is in the middle of a fight to calm down. It's as simple as that's what they taught everybody. Calm down, then you can talk. I see some eyes rolling. Okay. The next one is very easy. It's called speak non-defensively. So the third part of repairing a relationship, and to me this is one of the most essential parts of relationships, is the affirmation and the validation. Affirming what the other person's doing that makes you feel good. I really appreciate that. Or thank you very much. It sounds so simple, but it is so significant. It's so significant that in his research, I think, if I recall this correct, it's 5 affirmations for 1 criticism. The balance is 5 affirmations will neutralize 1 criticism.
Ooh, I've
Isn't that
experienced the
incredible?
5-to-1 ratio, but it
The other way around. See? See? I wondered if anybody else has an example of a positive affirmation where they felt really good that somebody did something and they said something about it. Well, actually, Fabio, you started. You opened up with, we did Shabbat, and it was really fun, and you asked your father-in-law to do these things, and then it seemed to have gotten on a bigger role than your in-laws expected. But that was a really, I thought, affirming thing to you, Reva, here, when he brought it up here and how much fun he had. Terrific.
I personally just feel a little bit stuck, so what what next step, what's a catalyst to move forward? I still feel like I don't know what to do to resolve anything. I don't know if you feel that way. I
No.
have to speak for myself.
I mean, we've had multiple conversations in the past week about things, and then throughout this class, usually it's on the walk home, and maybe sometime throughout the week, another time, but be lying and say it's like every night we're talking about this. But it's definitely, it's like, okay, where do you go?
I know that's difficult, but that to me is the most successful outcome of this class. That you have hopefully now skills and parameters to have a conversation. It's not going to be easy, but that you can at least move forward and keep talking. It's the keep talking is the follow-up. It's to keep talking, not to stonewall, not to be defensive, but to open up the communication, open up being able to keep talking, even though sometimes it's hard to hear what you're hearing, and it's hard to listen to what you're listening to. I mean, this isn't easy material, and it's not easy decisions to make.
I think it leaves both of us with, I don't know if it leaves us with more room for hope or more room for recognizing there will be loss for the other person. And
there always is loss for the other person.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
It
what they
doesn't mean that it eliminates hope, but there is always loss by definition of having an interfaith marriage. No matter what decisions you make, there's always loss. And it took me, I have to be honest, years till I could openly say that. I wanted it to not be there, and we should magically be able to create something so that people didn't have to feel loss. And that really, I was participating in blocking the discussion, to be quite honest. Because once you begin to put your arms around saying, it's true, I do have some loss. There's always loss in all kinds of things. It doesn't mean it's the end, and it doesn't mean something either richer can be built or that you can go forward. But there is loss. And there is also, I hope.